the curse, the journey beyond. Hey there, my friends. Gather round, and let me tell you a story. A tale passed down through the generations in a small town, deep in the heart of Africa. It's a story about friendship, struggle, and a dangerous deal that two men made, a deal that would change their lives forever. Once upon a time, in a town surrounded by lush, green forests and a sparkling river, there lived two men named John and Ben. These men were the best of friends, inseparable since they were little boys. They had been through life's ups and downs together, helping each other whenever times got tough. But lately, life had become incredibly hard for John and Ben. They were both poor, so poor, in fact, that they struggled to provide for their families. John had a wife and 2 children, while Ben had a wife and 3 daughters. Every day, from the break of dawn to the setting sun, they worked as hard as they could. They tilled the land, fished in the river, and did odd jobs for the villagers, hoping to scrape together just enough to get by. But no matter how hard they worked, it never seemed to be enough. There were days when their children went to bed with empty stomachs, and nights when their wives sat in silence, wondering if tomorrow would be any better. John and Ben often found themselves sitting under the big iroko tree in the middle of the village, their faces heavy with worry. "How long are we going to live like this?" they would ask each other. One evening, as the sky turned shades of red and orange with the setting sun, Ben turned to John. His voice was low, filled with sorrow. "Brother," he said, "we can't go on like this. Our families are suffering, and we don't have the strength to keep fighting this losing battle. There has to be a way to change our fate." John, staring at the horizon, nodded slowly. "You're right, Ben. But what can we do? We've tried everything." Ben leaned in close, his voice dropping to a whisper. "There's one thing we haven't tried." John's curiosity was piqued. "What is it?" "I've heard stories," Ben said cautiously. "Stories about men who ventured deep into the forest to find the oracle, the wise one who speaks with the gods. They say the oracle can grant wealth to those who are willing to make a promise." John's eyes widened. He had heard of the oracle, too, but those stories always came with warnings. "But Ben," John said, "the oracle's promises always come with a price. And that price, it's often more than people can bear." Ben waved his hand, dismissing John's concern. "What could be worse than watching our children starve? If the oracle can give us the wealth to take care of our families, we'll offer anything it asks." After thinking long and hard, John finally agreed. "All right, Ben, let's go. If there's a chance to save our families, we have to take it." So, early the next morning, John and Ben set off into the dense, mysterious forest, following the stories they had heard from the elders. They walked for hours, the forest growing darker and more foreboding with every step. The trees seemed to close in around them, and strange noises echoed through the air. But the two men were determined. Finally, they reached a hidden clearing in the heart of the forest. In the center stood an old, weathered hut, its door covered in strange, ancient symbols. This was the place. Ben, with trembling hands, knocked on the door. Slowly, it creaked open, and inside sat an old woman with long, white hair and eyes that seemed to pierce right through them. She was the oracle. "I know why you've come," the oracle said in a voice soft as the wind. "You seek wealth. But understand this. Everything in life comes with a price. Are you willing to pay it?" John and Ben exchanged nervous glances, but they had come too far to turn back now. "Yes," they said together. "But what will it cost?" The oracle smiled, though there was something unsettling about it. "I will grant you riches beyond your wildest dreams," she said. "But in return, you must promise me something. One day, when you have everything you desire, wealth, happiness, power, I will return. And when that day comes, you must give me whatever I ask for. Do you agree?" Without hesitation, John and Ben agreed. The oracle handed them each a small bag. "Inside these bags is the gold you seek," she said. "Take it, use it wisely, and you will never want for anything again. But remember, when the time comes, I will collect what is owed." Overjoyed, the two men rushed back to the village. When they opened the bags, they found more gold than they had ever seen in their lives. They did as the oracle instructed, using the gold to buy everything they needed. Soon, their families were no longer hungry, and John and Ben became the richest men in the village. Their lives changed completely. They built big houses, wore fine clothes, and their families never wanted for anything again. The villagers, once pitying their poverty, now admired them, and people came from far and wide to seek their help. But as time passed, John and Ben began to forget the oracle's warning. They spent their wealth recklessly, throwing grand parties and living in luxury. They believed their troubles were behind them. One night, during a lavish celebration at John's house, there was a knock at the door. It was a knock they both dreaded, though they had tried to forget it. Slowly, John opened the door, and there stood the oracle, her eyes cold and serious.
"It is time," she said.
"I have come to collect what you promised. I will take your eldest children for sacrifice. Next year, I will return for another." John and Ben fell to their knees, pleading, "Please, not our children. Take anything else, our wealth, our homes, but spare our families." But the oracle shook her head. "You offer me anything, and now I will take what is most precious to you." With a wave of her hand, a powerful wind swept through the village, and in an instant, John's and Ben's eldest children were gone. The men were left in despair, broken by the price they had paid. Their wealth had cost them the thing they cherished most, their children. From that day on, John and Ben lived in sorrow, haunted by their choice. And the villagers, who once envied their riches, now pitied them, for no amount of gold could bring back the love they had lost. And so, the story of John and Ben became a lesson passed down through the generations, a warning to be careful what you wish for and to always understand the cost of a promise. True happiness doesn't come from riches, but from the love and laughter of family, which can never be replaced. John, once the proud father of two strong boys, now sat alone under the great Iroko tree, his heart as heavy as the branches above him. His wife no longer looked at him with love, and his remaining son, a boy of only 8, no longer laughed or played like he used to. How could he, when the shadow of his older brother's loss loomed over the house? Ben fared no better. His daughters, who once danced around the house with joy, now huddled in corners, their eyes wide with fear. His wife barely spoke a word, her face drawn and pale. The house, once filled with warmth and laughter. But the worst part, my friends, was the gnawing fear that grew inside John and Ben with each passing day. The oracle had taken their firstborns, but she had made it clear that she would return. And when she did, she would demand more. 1 year. That was all the time they had before the oracle would knock on their doors again, this time for their second children. It was a ticking clock that haunted their every moment, turning their lives into a waking nightmare.